It's freezing in here. We're up on Mount Hood today, and I was driving in, getting up to the base of the mountain, and farmers got the water sprinkling out there. Did you see that ice? You didn't even, what, were you one of those guys that left the house, all of a sudden you were here, you didn't even remember how you got here? There's ice hanging all over the kiwi out there, and even the peach orchard, the water in the peach orchard. I never heard of such a thing unless they're just short of water because there's no water. But why would you water a peach orchard? I thought cold weather was good for peaches in the dormant. It's freezing out here. I went to turn on the heater and it said no heat, just add another coat. So we got the redneck rain gauge. It shows we haven't got any rain today, catching the water coming through the ceiling, and we're all bundled up out here. I was hoping Andy Vasquez would have left me like a heater to like warm my toes up. I'm gonna have to be. Remember those old things we used to have? Maybe I'm too old for this. They had a hand warmer. You put some kind of fluid in it and light it and keep it in your coat pocket and actually keep. That's what I need is a hand warmer. Man, it's freezing out here. Santos in there, Wikiman's in there sitting with all the equipment that's cooking in there. He's got a little heater going, but over here it's just me talking, just one body. I need some more bodies in here. Well, if you're up, maybe you're listening already, and this is the Patriot, 1410 a.m. I didn't know whether I was going to be out here this week or not. I thought maybe the party might be over, but here we are. It's KMYC Radio, and we're here for 3 hours talking about all kinds of crazy stuff. We're doing some trauma intervention training this week, and so the head of the Yuba City Water Treatment Plant, Michael, over there, he stopped me. We were getting organized, and he was saying, hey, I listened to you on the radio, and thank you for what you do. And so I know we have some listeners over there at the water treatment plant, the guys and gals that work over there. And so I went there this morning before I came here to get the training started that's going on while we're talking here. I met the same lady that I met last night that was running the plant. I said, I slept all last night knowing that you were keeping the city together. We just take all these things for granted, processing water and sewage and turn on the tap in the morning and flush the toilet. Out here, you never know. So you might have water, you might have heat, you can't use the air. So, one of these days we'll be like those homeless guys and we'll just build a little campfire right in the middle of the floor out here. So we're out here, if you don't know where we're talking from, we're out here in Northern California, what we're hoping to be the state of Jefferson. We're out in East Linda, California. That's really not a city, it's just an area in Yuba County, one of the 58 counties of California, one of the most poorest counties of California. But it's a beautiful place to live, a lot of natural resources, waterways, dams, lakes, rivers, streams, mountains, snow, the valley, lots of good fruit, some of the best farmland in the world, Yuba County. But we actually reach out to a few counties like Sutter, Butte, up there to Oroville where they're repairing the spillway, and out to Colusa County, Nevada County, Placer County. We tap into a few other counties, so we'll try to speak about things in an intelligent manner so you maybe learn something about your own county, although most of what I know about is on county-wide is Yuba and Sutter counties. I was talking to one of the fellows that used to live in Marysville. He called me from Hagerman, Idaho this week. Called me on the cell phone. Isn't it amazing how we can just call? I can dial up Vietnam. You can dial up all over the world right now. You can dial all around the world for free. Did you know that? If you have the right app on your phone. And so I got a call from Hagerman, Idaho, and it was a fellow that used to live in East Marysville. He and his wife, this is how funny things, just life is funny sometimes and odd. So when the spillway incident happened, the Oroville spillway, fell apart because of lack of care given by the state of California, although they take all our money, and then they put us in dire straits up here. So since everybody had to evacuate, they evacuated this couple out of East Marysville. And East Marysville is known in the Yuba County, Sutter County area. Of all the areas like Yuba City Unified, Yuba City Water, Yuba City Municipal Water District, Olivehurst Water, Linda Water, up in Yuba County, out in the county areas, up in the foothills, Marysville has water that costs about 3 or 4 times as much as anybody else's water because it's a corporation that rips people off. It's called the California Water Service. Anyway, this couple, they had to evacuate, mandatory evacuation, so they decided to go to Idaho and have a little vacation. And when they were up there, they thought, oh, let's check out Boise. So they thought, oh, there's too much traffic around here. And so then they were kind of looking at what houses cost and stuff, and they saw this house, caught their attention. They went out to this town called Hagerman. And I looked it up on the internet and said in the last 10 years, Hagerman's population went up by 30%. And it got up to about 800 people. That's not many people. You don't have to add many people to just jump it up there. But they got a really great deal on a house. And I said, well, tell me about Hagerman. What was so attractive? He said, Lou, you can pack a gun right on your hip, walk in the grocery store. And he said, you wouldn't believe it. You don't know it till you get away from all the oppression of California. And he said, he said, they have separate water for drinking water, and then they have irrigation water, right? So he said, when I add up my drinking water and my sewage and my garbage service, it's less than $100, the total. I think he said it was around $88. And he said, for instance, where I live in Marysville, not too far from where they live, I would spend more than that for just water my yard. And so they said they had separate water for irrigation, but they said it's an amazing, the garbage, we call it garbage here, trash. In Sutter County, the county administrator calls it unclaimed debris. Yeah, so that's my new term for recology. If I ever notice my toter didn't get picked up, I call him and say, I have some unclaimed debris out here stacked up in front of my house that you guys forgot to take with you. Unclaimed debris. Sometimes people go through my toters and they claim it. They said, oh, that's mine right there. I'll take that debris. So he also said, Lou, we had a couple cars and a couple RVs, and he said the price of all of them to register them up here is half of just one vehicle in California. Just half of all the cars, getting everything registered properly in Idaho, it was half of just what one cost over here in California. We just had that increase, right, where they added on this new tax because all the DMV fees and the sales taxes on cars and all the gas taxes at the pump, that doesn't go to fix our roads or bridges or all that kind of stuff to help us drive easily. That goes for other stuff. And so then they say, well, now we have to have a special tax. So they added a special tax, and some people got $100 bump on their DMV fees, right? Annually. And I think his DMV fees up there in Idaho are 2 years, every 2 years. It's kind of like smog down here, right? They check you every 2 years. So I had a fun time talking to them. They said they bought a house for about half the price of what one was worth. So they rented their house out in East Marysville, and they said, let somebody else pay those high water bills and PG&E bills. We're going up to Idaho. And they said, Lou, you don't even realize it until you get out how much baloney is going on. And he said, you know that 1%, he said, you know that 1% sales tax that the city of Marysville charges? Like I told you that 95901, that's the city of Marysville, but it also extends out into the county in the unincorporated areas. But people out in the county are actually getting charged that tax. If you buy gasoline in the city of Marysville, you get charged. If you buy it, but if you buy like a car, like my friend Dr. Cassidy did, he lives out in the county, but he's got the same area code as the city. He bought a car for $12,000, new used car, another truck, and he ended up getting overcharged $120 and had to apply to the Board of Equalization. They now have a new term for that organization, but it's the one who collects all the taxes, sales taxes. And he had to apply and get a refund to convince them that he didn't live in the city of Marysville. What my friends in Idaho said, he said, if you buy stuff on the internet and you're out there in the county, you also get charged that 1%. And or if you're in the city of Marysville, now, you used to be able to buy on the internet, buy from another state, and you didn't have to pay California sales tax, right? Well, now they're catching up with that. And so they're making these corporations in other areas charge California sales tax. And so they're adding on that 1% Marysville tax. So you think, and this fellow has reported it to the city council of Marysville before he left. And you know something? The politicians are so stupid. They create these laws and lie about it to get you to vote for them. And then you tell them, hey, it isn't working right because you shouldn't have to pay an extra 1% tax if I buy something in Nevada, right? And have it shipped over here because I find something online I want, like a fishing pole at Cabela's over in Nevada. So my friend in Idaho, who's probably listening right now, he said they get up and listen every Saturday morning, which is a shock to me. I think there's got to be better things to do over there. Maybe you can go catch a trout or go fishing or something or go out and look at a deer walking across your front lawn. But they're listening, and he said, Lou, it's crazy. He said that they can't even administrate their own egregious taxes they charge, and so they're taxing you on things they shouldn't be taxed. For instance, if I go to Yuba City and buy a bunch of stuff at a grocery store in Yuba City, you know how they charge a tax on some things, not tax on another. And all of a sudden they say, where are you from? And I say, I'm from Marysville. They say, oh, we're going to charge you different because you're over here, right? But you're from Marysville. Well, they don't do that, but they do on cars, right? On automobiles. So anybody that lives in the city of Marysville, and if you're not paying attention, you live up in the Loma Rica area or out in District 10 or out in Linda where it's a 95901 area code, you're probably getting charged. And how many people pay attention like Dr. Cassidy does? Not a lot. Probably not a lot. So it's a messed up deal, and I'm going to talk more about the Yuba County now is going to add another 1%, which would be, if they do it countywide, that means the people in Marysville are now going to pay 2%. That's going to be almost 10% on top of everything. It's like we're tithing to the city, right? A tithe means a tenth if you're a Bible reader or a Jesus follower. So obedient Christians tithe to the church they go to. That's 10%. It means, like the root word is deca, like decade, 10%. So the government, on top of all the other taxes they're taxing you on, every time every time you pay your phone bill, or every time you buy a phone, or you pay your utility bills of any type of utility bill. Anytime you do hardly anything, there's a little bit of fee on there. Goes to government, goes to government, goes to government. You can't hardly breathe. In fact, pretty soon, well, actually, they're going to charge you for moving around. Did you know that? Just moving around. So that not only are you going to have DMV fees, if you move your car, they're going to keep track of your odometer. If you move around a lot, we're going to tax you. Pretty soon they'll figure out how many breaths you take and say, hey, you're dinging the environment for like 30,000 breaths a day. So we're going to, right? You don't think they can do that? They're taxing cow farts. Think about it. These people are nuts. So I went on the internet this morning. I was checking out Hagerman, Idaho, because my mom used to live before she came over here and married my dad, and then they got in trouble and had a baby. That would be me, but they used to live in Twin Falls. So I looked on the internet and noticed that Hagerman's in between Twin Falls and Boise, Idaho. So anyway, well, hey, I wanted to. I just ran across this article. It just blows my mind. You know, we talk all about this incredible opioid addiction problem in the United States. And that is not an illegal drug. You know, we talk about drug dealers, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamines, right? All that stuff. People smuggle that stuff in the United States, and because it doesn't really grow. Opium poppies don't grow here. And so they're bringing it in through all kinds of ways. So we talk about all these dirt bags, these terrible people, drug dealers. But most of the drugs are being used in this country are pharmaceutical drugs that are made by multi-billion-dollar corporations that are hustling doctors to prescribe these opioids, right? Like heroin-type drugs, all those kind of stuff. And recently, one of the big ones that produce oxycodone, or sometimes people they say a little different. They call it Oxycontin, right? But it's oxycodone. And so they, just like if you sell any type of product, you have a store, you have salespeople that come in and they want you to carry a certain product. So they promote it and stuff. That's what they do to these doctors and say, oh, this is a wonderful drug, this oxycodone, and all these various hydrocodone, or Norco, they call it. And so they'd pitch it saying, please use our product. It's a great product. You'll love it. Your people will love it. Well, oxycodone took the country by storm, and they pitched it like it was not very addictive, although it's like very addictive. So I noticed, my friend Dr. Cassidy, who at one time for like over 20 years was the health officer for the county of Yuba. So in each county in the state of California, there is a health officer who oversees health problems that affects county residents. So it could be a tuberculosis outbreak, a rabies outbreak, and there, all kinds of stuff. Stuff happens. And so Dr. Cassidy began to address the addiction issue, and we used to have conversations where he said, Lou, there are doctors prescribing an obscene amount of opiates, and they're not really properly monitoring their patients. So he explained to me that there is now a database in the state of California when you prescribe some pills to a patient, then you go on the internet and you put that person's name and what you prescribe them in the internet, so they can't double dip and triple dip and quadruple dip going from doctor to doctor to doctor to pill shop. So I noticed that this article, a cardiologist named Nicholas Kapos, do you remember this guy? This guy was on Live Oak Boulevard as you drive out to the church where he used to work. We used to work together at the Church of Glad Tidings. So on Live Oak Boulevard, right across from where a woman's friend is now located, right in that area, within a block or two. On the other side, there was a guy named Nicholas Kapos. I always said, oh, it's interesting, doctor right there. Anyway, this guy's my age. He's a little younger than me, 67. And this guy got arrested. And he's a cardiologist, and he was prescribing thousands of opioid pills. and they sentenced him to 4.5 years in federal prison. And what he was doing is when he would prescribe them, he would charge a $100 DEA fee on top, a little spiff. You just kind of create it out of thin air, just like the government does. They just come up and say, oh, we're going to charge like a fart fee, $100 fart fee. Like we just assume you're going to fart every month. So we're just going to add a $100 fee to everybody in town because Jerry Brown, this is something he would come up with. He came up with the cow fart fee. And so this is a $100 DEA fee to just because we're just trying to help the DEA control bad people like me, the prescriber, Dr. Kapos, the Drug Enforcement Agency, DEA fee. So he was prescribing on top of everything else a DEA fee. And so Kapos, it says, who no longer has a license, prescribed one patient, hold on to this, 2,640 hydrocodone pills, that's Norcos, in 28 days. That patient would have had to take 100 pills a day at that rate, 100 pills. Now, I took Norcos for 9 weeks because I had back problem until I got into surgery. I took 5 pills in a 24-hour period to just hold the pain manageable till I could get in there and have them, like, do a tune-up. And this is 100 pills a day. Now, I don't think that guy was consuming all those. Let's say maybe he was supplying Yuba Sutter counties, right? He's prescribed another patient 2,100 oxycodone pills over 50 days. That's a rate of 42 pills a day. Now, I think somebody told me those are worth over $5 a pill, right? On the street. So that's, if he sold oxycodones for $5, that's 10 grand in 50 days. Amazing. So one of the problems Dr. Cassidy has always said is that docs are not properly prescribing. Not only this is like extreme abuse, but for instance, a lot of people will come in and get, are we out of time? Do we end? Okay, we're out of time. We're going to come back. We got 2.5 hours. I don't know whether I even told you. I'll catch up here in the next half hour and finish up what I'm supposed to do. Be right back. All right, we're back. Well, Hagerman checked in. So they're listening out there in Idaho. So we got 2 listeners there and a couple over in Yuba County. So we're warming up here today. Do you feel warmer over in your spot? Is your side? No, you're still cold over there. Well, you can call us up if you want to. Just give us a shout out at 530-742-5555. Again, 530-742-5555. Have you heard there? I had some clips there of Billy Graham, who died this week. I think Billy Graham was looking forward to moving on a number of years ago, but he was just stuck here. The oldest woman in the world was, at one time, was living in France. I think she was 111 or 9 or something like that. And you know how they always ask people that got a lot of years on them? What is the reason that what do you credit your long life to? And so usually people say, you always hate to have them say 4 cigars a day and a fifth of whiskey, because then it's like, oh, well, there it gives you justification to live wild, right? Or like have sex with all the neighbors or whatever. So this guy was asking this woman, this reporter, and she says, I think the Lord just forgot me. So I think you know how people, you ever remember people leave the church for Sunday and they have a bunch of kids and all of a sudden they just come back and say, hey, we left John. Anybody see? We thought we had all 7 of them or 8 of them or 4 of them. We thought, well, each of us thought, we took 2 cars, each of us thought we had all of them, and then we left, and but we're missing one, right? So I love this. I love when those are just some snippets of Billy Graham's various messages. And he talked about if you had all the gold, if you had all the oil, if you had all this and you had all that. And isn't that so much of what America's all about? Mr. Kapos, I mean, how look at all the work it took to become a doctor, and the prestige and people admiring you and all the people you could help. And then you slip into this deal where you charge your patients a $100 DEA fee. I mean, how much money do you need? You only eat a couple times a day, and it's like you can't just eat anymore. It's like, hey, I ate, so that's that, right? Or I got a house, or I got a car, and so that's that. I mean, how many cars do you want? Do you want to just line them up in a warehouse? I mean, does that make you feel good? I don't know. What if you gain the whole world, if you sell 10 million hydrocodone pills and make millions of dollars? So what? I mean, what's it worth? You know, and as I was listening to Billy Graham speak there, I was thinking of Nebuchadnezzar. And because Nebuchadnezzar was one of the most powerful rulers in the world, ruler of Babylon. And I think about it every once in a while because there's a spirit of stupid that I believe God has given many of the leaders in America because they've denied God, or they disrespect God, or they mock God. And so God can just give you a spirit of stupid. And Nebuchadnezzar got, if you read the story, the account of Nebuchadnezzar, he got really arrogant. And he got really prideful, arrogant. Like, hey, look at what I got going on here. I'm a pretty sharp guy. And God just sent him out and made him like an animal. And he thinks, oh, that's stupid. That could never happen. Oh, I just drive around mental health, why don't you? And watch people walking up down the road or out in Oliver's Avenue, just talking to invisible people out there. And Nebuchadnezzar just ended up living outdoors. And obviously, you know, people do that today. You think, oh, people don't live outdoors. Hey, check the river bottoms out, dude. People are screwed up. And you think that God can't smite that's an Old Testament word. There's really no common word like that fits that today, but smite, you know, just kick your rear and kick you into a spirit of stupidity. When people start taxing cow farts and start taxing you for moving around and just every move you make, it's crazy. So, been thinking about those Hagerman people up there not having to pay all these fees, and everything cheaper. Able to go out and just carry a gun. When I was a kid in Marysville, I used to be able to have my gun in a rifle or shotgun rack across the back window of my dad's pickup. We had a gun rack, and that's where we carried the gun. And you could pull into a store, you could drive around, no cop would think of it. It was like stupid. Now we got all these sissies out there. I don't know whether this statement was attributed to John Kelly, the chief of staff for the president. I'm always leery when people attribute things to people on the internet, where I stumbled across this. So, but it doesn't really make any difference who said it. I think it's interesting. You know, we have this shooting of these children. And this is what I mean. There's a spirit of stupid that's come over the entire nation. You think, oh, we have no idea how to protect our children. Like last night, I was at the TIP meeting, right? And we have this mentor program that we do to get new TIP people started. And one of the fathers is a school teacher in Yuba City. So he came in because it's a TIP teen. He's a really sharp kid. In fact, you probably know him. But anyway, he came in and he said, oh, this mentor thing, I want to know more about it. He says, are the mentors background checked and fingerprinted? I said, oh, no problem. I said, all TIP people, you can't be in TIP without clearing a background check and also the police background check. There's 2 background checks. And it's interesting that we talk about, we can figure out how to, like every city has a police department. We have security businesses like Elite Universal Security that we promote here. But we have police, we have sheriff, we have state marshals, we have federal marshals, we have the National Guard, we have the FBI, we have the CIA. We just have layer after layer after layer after layer after layer of protectors in our society. And then we have our military. And yet the most precious asset that all of us have are our children. If you have children, right? Or grandchildren, or whatever you got. And it's just totally confusing how to protect them. It's just become, it's like, oh, what we need is to stop all guns everywhere in the world. But like this week, I was listening to talk radio, and they were saying how the comparison between people that die by guns and people that die by knives is it's a huge difference. Way more with knives, right? So this statement says, here's a fact that may be inconvenient for those demanding gun control. The NRA kills 0 people a day. That's the National Rifle Association. And they receive $0 taken from taxpayers. It's a nonprofit that receives donations. I'm an NRA member myself. So the NRA as an organization does not kill anybody. And they don't take any tax dollars. Planned Parenthood kills, it says here, 887 people a day, or 1 every 90 seconds, and they get $500 million a year. Now, I want you to just think about that, because when we think about killing people, it's like, oh my God, the only difference between Planned Parenthood does and what a deranged person does, when we say he killed that kid, is the size of the kid. That's all it is. So let me just say this. Think about this. This is a difference between, I'm not talking about Democrats and Republicans. This is a conservative mindset versus a liberal mindset. If a conservative doesn't like guns, he just doesn't buy one. If a liberal doesn't like guns, he wants all guns outlawed. If a conservative is a vegetarian, he just passes on meat. If a liberal is a vegetarian, he wants all meat products banned for everybody. If a conservative is down and out, he thinks about how to better his situation. A liberal, he wonders who's going to take care of him. If a conservative doesn't like a talk show host, he just turns it off or switches channels. Liberals demand that those they don't like be shut down. If a conservative is a non-believer, he just doesn't go to church like I did. A liberal non-believer wants any mention of God and Jesus silenced. If a conservative decides he needs health care, he goes about shopping for it, or may choose a job that actually provides it. A liberal demands that the rest of us pay for his. If a conservative reads this, he might forward it on and share it like I'm sharing it. A liberal will delete it because he's offended. That's sort of the mindset or the difference between the two. Now, you've probably been watching, I don't have a television hooked up, but I stumble across stuff on the internet, and I read stuff on the, sometimes on YouTube clips, and then I read stuff. But it's amazing the craziness that's going on around this Florida shooting. And in fact, this morning I got up, and did you read where there was a guy that could have stopped it? Well, it started out one guy, and I thought, you drive down the street and you see these patrol cars and they say protect and serve. Like, they don't teach English. They don't teach art or music in the schools. They don't sweep the streets. They don't make a burrito. All they do is protect and serve. That's their mission. That's good. I have good friends that do that. In fact, my son-in-law's a deputy in Orange County. And so this guy decides to wait till the kid runs out of ammo before he goes in, right? Don't you think? That's what he did. He just heard all that shooting, thought, I'm just going to stay out here till the shooting, all the dust settles, then I'll go in and pick up the pieces. Now we hear, what is it, 4? It's up to 4 people. And the local police department is outing the sheriff's department because they were the first ones there. And I saw a clip where the sheriff and Dana Loesch, who's a representative for the NRA, debated. Did you see that? Whoa, that clip. And this guy is saying the only person to blame here is the shooter. I thought, listen, if the sheriff's department, was it 39 times or 29 times, 39 times? You know, you wonder, when is government going to take some responsibility? When, I mean, if you go into Red Robin and you get a bad burger, you complain and you never go back, maybe, right? Or you get a taco at some place and it's bad or it's cold. You go to the next taco stand. In government, they just say, oh, yeah, we were contacted 39 times, didn't do anything. FBI doesn't check it out. And it's all this kid's fault, right? Because he'd been thinking about it, praying about it, practicing, getting organized for years, talking about it, letting everybody know he's going to do it, and then he does it, and it's never government's fault. One person said every single government authority failed in Parkland. It's just like, come on, man, we got 100%. We bat 1,000 on this one. And so instead of like taking responsibility, they want to come after over here in California and take away my gun rights, right? Are you guys nuts? Like, let's take away the guns from the sheriff's department. They don't seem to have any need for them. They're going to wait till the guy runs out of ammunition. We'll just, you know. It's like, hey, you don't need any teeth if everything's going to be blended for you, right? Just slick it all down. Like, hey, just wait till everybody runs out of ammo and just go and lasso them with a rope. So, we know that the FBI was warned specifically about the shooter not once, but twice, and did nothing. We know that the Broward County Sheriff's deputies were called to the home at least 39 times. We know that the Broward County Sheriff's Office was warned multiple times about the shooter. We know that an armed officer, this was when we just knew one, now we had a whole team of people hiding behind cars outside waiting for this guy to run out of ammo. We know that armed officers were present during the shooting and did nothing. It took ROTC students to do something. Unbelievable. Gave their life while these guys and maybe some ladies out there with bulletproof vests and shotguns and automatic weapons hid behind patrol cars. Come on, man. This is like, and people think this is okay. It's like we're going to argue and cry and spit and have snot running off our chin because we can't confiscate every gun in America, or we got to deal with bump stocks and things that look like auto. It's just unbelievably screwy. It's like Nebuchadnezzar eating grass and crawling on all fours. It's just stupid. The solution to mass shootings is for law-abiding citizens to give more authority to the authorities that failed. Are you kidding me? You want to give more authority to stupid people? Government authorities that are out of their minds? And turn over our only way of... You want me to turn over my way of protecting myself when you're going to hide behind a patrol car and wait till the dude runs out of ammo and maybe needs to go get a burger? It gets hungry because I'm tired of shooting so many people. Said this is hard work, this shooting kids. Why in the world would a single law-abiding gun owner hand over his or her weapon to the same authorities that did jack diddly? They didn't do jack diddly to stop anything over there. This guy just ran out of energy. He wasn't in good shape. They couldn't even kill the guy. What do we want to take him into custody for? We're going to like rehabilitate him or something after he kills, I don't know how many, what are we up to? 17? And we're going to blame a nonprofit organization just because it stands up for our Constitution. Like law enforcement now, it just seems like in Broward County, that sheriff, that guy's an idiot. He won't even stand up for the Second Amendment. Nor now Rick Scott, Republican, quote-unquote, Rick Scott, governor of Florida, now is all wobbly on the Second Amendment. Why would you ever take the sheriff, his name's Steve Israel, seriously when his guys are too cowardly outside the school to help some defenseless young children while he blames the lack of gun control on it? It's unbelievable. Is that stupid? It's just people, they've lost their minds. You know, it's kind of like your toilet overflowing. And instead of dealing with that, you go down and buy a gallon of paint and paint the trim on the house. It's just like you know, people think you lost your mind. You got sewage smell coming out of your toilet area. People come to visit and they say, "What's that smell?" Said, "Your trim looks great on the house. That looks really great. Hey, you painted the house, but it stinks inside." You think, well, yeah, I know the toilet has been overflowing for a week, but I really thought I wanted to change the color on the trim on the house. Like, where's the priorities, right? Incredible. Well, I know we're reaching out to 4 or 5 counties, portions of 4 or 5 counties, all of a few counties. We've been talking about the Yuba City Unified School District, which is not unique. For you out in Oliver and Lind, it means it's not that different or not that special. It's probably typical, as I talked about last week. I talked about the LA School District and the Miramontes Elementary School, where Mark Burnt, for 25 years, molested children and other men molested children. They had a epidemic of men molesting little boys and girls. That make you just want to go kill somebody? Or hide behind your car in a bulletproof vest and maybe order out some lattes while you have to wait till the gunslinger inside runs out of bullets or gets tired and wants to order tacos? So Yuba City Unified School District, the home of the honkers, at least Yuba City High School, and then now we have more than one high school over there. Well, we have elementary schools and high schools, and they have been ignoring people's complaints about teachers that were bullies, coaches, bullies, teachers molesting women for years. Past trustee Mary Henson said she didn't ever remember anybody bringing anything to the board. Other trustees, Lynetta Riley, said her tenure on the board, which goes, I think, approaching 4 terms, maybe 5 terms. She's been on there a long time serving the community. She said, no one's ever brought this to our attention. I said, well, I thought, you know something, I've been on a school board and I know what that's like. You're not on the campuses. You're not out there until somebody comes and says something. You're just stuck. But what happened? Parents were complaining. Parents typically complain to the principal. That's who they go to, or school resource, or to the teacher or something if there's an issue with their kid. So how come if everybody's a mandatory or mandated reporter that it just kept getting up to the principal and dying, principal and dying, principal, and you don't hear about it again. And then in the reports that people made, it says appropriate action was taken. But there's no description and no explanation to the victim of the appropriate action that was taken. And the Ed Code, from what people have told me that know something about this, because I know just a little bit, they say, Lou, it's required by law that victims are notified of the appropriate action that was taken to resolve the problem. So what's this thing of people, you just leave this in the student's file, appropriate action was taken, but it doesn't say what's the appropriate action. Then at a school board meeting here recently, a lady stands up named Shirley Gabhart and begins to talk about the intimate details of a student's school life that was only available in her school file, and she's talking about it in a public meeting, over 100 people there. How does a school file become, it's a violation of the law, become available to just a citizen in the community to just blab about? When you hear that, that's a bad sign. That means I need to stop talking and let Santos do his thing. We'll be right back. We got 2 more hours. All right. I visited my friend Kumar Kairam, who runs the Washington Avenue Market, this week, and we were celebrating. We were talking, and I was having tea with him, and we were celebrating the fact that he got the right of this communist government in Yuba City to actually sell a single can of beer, 16-ounce can of beer. Can you believe that? Remember we talked about taxing your cow farts and every move you make. So you can have a liquor store and get a license from the Alcohol Beverage Control, or ABC they call it, and then the city arbitrarily just says, well, we don't think we want you to sell a 16-ounce can of beer. That's that. So for years, so the city officials are so stupid that they think, well, that doesn't make any difference to the bottom line, your profit. So I was asking Kumar this week, I was saying, Kumar, tell me about what it's been like since you've been able to sell what you want in your own store. In other words, you invest all your money and all your people's time. If you go in there, you see Kumar's family working there, not all kinds of employees. They run their own store. So you invest all your money, all your time, take all the risk, and then the government comes in and tells you what time you can open, what time you can close, how much you have to pay your people, right? How much insurance you have to have, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation insurance, liability insurance, and then they're going to tell you what products you can sell. Is that freedom? That free enterprise? So he said, Lou, it's made a huge difference because he said when people come in, they start shopping here. Maybe they want one beer. That's all they want. And then they buy some milk and some other supplies for the house. And so they tend to, they might buy any other gum, whatever, chips, some sandwich meat or whatever. And so it's not just a beer. It just, if they want that, then they buy other things, or they make us their regular stop before or after or during work. So we were celebrating that, and it reminded me that the people that really started the ball rolling to complain to the government about that was the Sutter Buttes Tea Party Patriots that started to support him and rally behind him, and then various people got on board to do that. So you remember the Patriots, Sutter Buttes Tea Party Patriots, started after the Tea Party began to spread throughout the United States. And so this group of Tea Party folks meet the first and third Mondays of the month. And they actually, what I've said about the Tea Party is when they first started throughout the United States, they were activists. They didn't just act like a church and just have little preach to the choir meetings. They actually were out doing stuff and having an impact on the community. And I've encouraged them locally to do that. And they helped Kumar Kairam just get his rights as an employer back. Took them years, but they fought and they did something. Instead of a lot of people just want to whine about stuff, but they don't want to put their neck out or their chin out, or they don't want to get any skin in the game. So the Sutter Buttes Patriots, they meet at the first and third Monday nights of the month at the Church of Glad Tidings. The Church of Glad Tidings, years ago when they couldn't find a place, inexpensive place to meet, we offered that facility for them to use because we believe in their mission. Hold that thought. Tea Party should have a good ring to you, the Boston Tea Party, and the Patriots. That should have a good ring to you. If it doesn't, maybe you should move to Venezuela. So the Church of Glad Tidings at Highway 990 and Eager Road is easy to get to. It's just north of Yuba City, about 3 minutes on the freeway. But they have a speaker this coming up Monday, March 5th, and it's James Stone. He's president of the NorCal Guides and Sportsmen's Association, and he's an author, and you can check him out at elitesportsman.com. The interesting thing is he's going to be talking about the impact of the Oroville Dam debacle that messed up the Feather River and, of course, affected his business and did multi-millions of dollars in damages to farms and to fisheries and to guide services like him. He's going to be talking about the silt problem and sediment, sand, damage to the river and what could be done about it. So if you want to hear about that, Monday, March 5th, anybody can go, no charge, there's no fees. You don't have to join anything. They'll even maybe give you some free refreshments. So go check that out. And I was also looking at Elite Universal Security, or I call it Elite Security, this week, and on some of the classes that they have. And, I'm telling you, there are jobs everywhere, and these guys keep saying, we need some good security people. So I wanted to encourage you. They have Elite Security not only hires people to work in the Yuba, Sutter counties area, but also up in Chico, Butte County, and up in Redding. But their next class coming up that they offer is a taser and pepper spray class. And maybe some of you don't want to pack a gun, or maybe you have a gun, but you want to learn how to use a taser, or maybe get a taser, or pack some pepper spray. So if you want to learn about that, or maybe you want to get that credential to go into guard work or police work, March 3rd, they're going to have a class. And so you can jump on that boat by calling 530-749-0280. So the way I found that out, you could check it out yourself, and you could follow their classes throughout the year. They have a calendar that they post those classes, and it's api-academy.com. api-academy.com, and that's their school. That's Elite Security School. So in other words, you say, yeah, I'd like to do that guard thing, but how do you even get ready? How do you get prepared? Well, they'll train you. They'll train you in-house, and they'll give you they're certified to give all the certificates on handcuff training, pepper spray, guard card, all the stuff. Now, if you're a business and you need some more help on managing the safety of your business, and people keep taking stuff or messing around with your business or tagging it, or using your front door area as a place to sleep or to deposit their doing their constitution, the business, their daily constitution, like dumping in the front of your house, and like that happened at the Territorial Dispatch. Somebody took a dump right there in the front of the business. Is that unbelievable? Right in downtown Marysville. In fact, I saw a guy right next to Jim Boy's Tacos. Squatting, right? That's a bad sign when you can get away with that in the city. Nobody does anything about it. So if you're looking for more security, or if you're getting panhandlers or people troubling your customers, Monty Hecker at Elite Security can solve your problem, and he will provide you some security. Or maybe you got a farm and people keep stealing the fuel out of your rigs, or a construction operation or a trucking operation. You got all these trucks parked out there, and people keep coming in and stealing your diesel or stealing your gasoline. Like that ain't right. So anyhow, Well, let me get back to what I was talking about earlier, and that is the law, the Yuba City Unified School District. And for years, people now have come out of the woodwork and said, listen, I was touched inappropriately by one of your teachers in 1996, in 1998, in 2000, in 2002, da-da-da-da-da. People say, oh, yeah, well, these little girls, these 14-year-old girls, you can't trust what they say. They're all liars. Well, first of all kids don't lie. You know, the fact is, I've never found a human being that hasn't lied. So let's just say, for instance, all of us have lied. Let's put that out of the way. Does that mean we lie about everything? No. So does every 14-year-old lie? No. About everything? No. Do they lie sometimes? Yes. So you have to sort through the situation. So some people stood up at the board meeting and said, well, one girl said, well, you know how girls lie. Oh, God, that was a crazy statement to make. The question is this person lying about this, right? That's what police and district attorneys and all kinds of people sort out, and parents have to sort that out, right? Did you eat that cookie? No, I didn't eat it, right? So here's the deal. When you have, this is what got my attention. When a woman that went to school 15 or 20 years ago now comes out and says, I was molested back then, my breasts were touched, my bottom was grabbed, da-da-da-da, when I was 14, 15, 16 at Yuba City High School. I was too horrified, I was too embarrassed, I was too ashamed of it. I didn't want my name to be trashed all over the campus and made fun of, so I buried it and suffered through it and just wanted to get out of there and go to college or get married or moved on and get out of there. That's hard to refute. How are you ever going to prove that back in the day unless you have a witness? I don't know. But why would people come out when they're 25, 20, 25, 30, 35 years of age and speak out against this person? So now, in the newspaper this week, the district, Unified School District, and physical education teacher Jim Whitaker are defendants in a civil lawsuit filed in Superior Court. And there's actually not a lawsuit, but lawsuits developing. And the interesting thing is Roberto Marquez, who is a well-known attorney for defending criminals, said that the suit is silly. I don't know whether I think he needs a little tutelage in public relations. I don't know whether I would mock a person saying that my client molested them. But, you know, it's his business, and so we'll just leave that to that. But there's a number of attorneys involved, some San Francisco attorneys and a local attorney. And there are recent claims, one current in January and then another one back to 3 years ago, that the mother has been trying to get some due process, and nobody seems to be paying any attention. The school wouldn't pay any attention. This police department didn't pay any attention. And so now she just said, I'm just going to sue him civilly. Remember when O.J. Simpson got off the murder trial, right? They found him not guilty. And then the family of his lady and another friend of hers, the boyfriend of hers, sued O.J. Simpson, and they got a lot of money. So that's the approach people are taking. When the system fails, when the government system, the schools do not do what they're supposed to do, even though they say, oh, we're mandated reporters. And when the police department does not do what they're supposed to do, or the school resource officer does not carry out due diligence, then the people, maybe their last recourse is to go to civil court and sue people and see if they can get damages. When generally people just would probably be satisfied with having the teacher removed. All right. So Roberto Marquez says in the paper, this is a silly lawsuit. Even assuming my client videotaped her, in other words, the claim is he Jim Whitaker, the PE teacher, videoed this girl from the waist down doing some kind of activity in physical education. He admitted he did it, and then he erased it and claimed the district told him to erase it, but then the district said, no, we didn't tell him to erase it. We talked about that last week. So Whitaker's stance that he videotaped the girl was because she wasn't participating, though he denies that it captured images only below the waist. It wasn't sexual in any nature, he said. Well, unfortunately, he erased what he took. Now, why would he take it if then he erased it? But he says the district told him to erase it, and the district said, no, we didn't tell him to erase it. This was, as I mentioned, the principal was a guy named Ramirez at that time, and it just a lot of activity with Whitaker was reported to Ramirez, and it kind of died there. Marquez says this is a silly lawsuit. The woman has zero proof that will substantiate that. Maybe that's true. The suit, well, let me just jump on down the article. The article says, it quotes the suit, says on numerous occasions throughout Whitaker's employment with the district, students and parents and guardians of students made complaints or reports to administrators at Yuba City High School and the district of inappropriate behavior by Whitaker. Now listen, these attorneys are not going to take a case. They may lose the case, and Whitaker may get his job back because of the clip I just played you, that the unions are so powerful that people get paid to remain in a school system that is corrupt, no matter whether they are corrupt or not. Now, the only thing, in my view, that got Mark Burnt at Miramontes Elementary School kicked out after years of fighting to get him out was they offered him $40,000, plus he probably walked away with his retirement, and then he got arrested and put in prison for 25 years. But short of that, teachers keep their jobs, and maybe they don't go back to the exact job they had, but they get put in what we call rubber rooms. They're rooms where they don't do anything but just pass the time of day and get the rest of their pay for the rest of their working life and then retire. The suit says, despite all these complaints, the district took no action to monitor and or stop Whitaker's misconduct and protect students in its care. This is the same spirit of ignoring the problem that got the kids shot down in Florida. We're coming right back. All right. If it makes you happy. Well, this is KNYC, and this is Lou Benninger. We're here with Wikiman's keeping me on track this morning, and we're. Are you warming up over there? Is it getting a little warmer? No, not warmer over here. It's cold. I had to get me another cup of coffee, just get me a source of heat. I think the fish are freezing out in the fish tank out here. Is there ice on the fish tank? I think those fish are like saying, "Help us out." I think there's a cry from help coming from the. I don't know what kind of fish those are. Those are big dudes. Once in a while, they used to jump right. I think it was a previous generation. The fish used to jump right out of the tank and land on the carpet. Unbelievable. Anyway, we were talking about the school unions, and the school unions have got such a control on the government of the schools that they basically run them. It used to be run by parents, and parents used to manage the schools. They'd be on the school board, but the board of trustees are basically puppets, and they have very little power. And so they can say, like, they started this process to terminate Mr. Whitaker, but this process is going to go on for months. And so now we're going to have an administrative law judge. Those people are paid off. I used to think when I grew up that judges were unbiased. They're not. A lot of them are just simply pawns of people that influence them, and they don't judge righteously. In fact, you can read all about it in the Bible, how judges don't judge righteously sometimes. And so administrative law judges are corrupt, and they're paid off by the school system, the unions, and so they rule for the teachers. And the other two people on the committee are two teachers' representatives. So you have two teachers' representatives and an administrative law judge that's in the pocket of the unions. So, you know, unless a guy like Martin Burnt is spoon-feeding his sperm into the mouths of kids and taking photos of kids in compromising situations, and then they catch him doing it, you almost have to catch a guy having sex with a kid in the classroom to get him eliminated. So you don't get him eliminated, you just get him on a full-time salary to sit and look out the window and count birds. So that's why the attorney for Mr. Whitaker is so confident that nothing's going to happen. In other words, the suit is not going to, they're not going to prevail against Mr. Whitaker. And that, in other words, he's not going to lose his salary. So here's the deal. We have a number of people that you hear about these two young women. One of them's out of high school now that he videoed. And then now we have this young lady who claims he grabbed her bottom and he says, I need her, whatever. So that we'll see what happens there. Last week there was a mention on Fox 40 of a second teacher that was put on leave or put off campus with pay, but then the district denied that. Some people felt it was the teacher who should have reported this incident once the girls reported what Whitaker did, and he just kind of blew it off. Obviously, as I had the former principal of the Truckee High School call me and said, you know, these are the penalties for that. People can lose their teaching credential for not reporting child abuse, right? Or molestation or whatever. And so it's interesting. Nobody really follows the law. Did you notice that? Do you know if you're a citizen, you have to follow the law or you'll get arrested or cited or sued. But if you're part of the government, you can follow the law or you can choose not to follow the law. Did you know that? That's just how it works out. So these mandated reporters, in fact, one of the three physical education teachers, I believe it was Connie Smith, at the board meeting, they stood up claiming they'd never heard any negative thing about Mr. Whitaker in their entire careers at Yuba City High School. Now, honestly, I think they're liars, but that's just my opinion. I don't know them, but I know teachers over there that have said, oh, there's trouble here, right? But they don't do anything about it. So, but in the complaint from the Bailey family, they claim that girl got moved from Whitaker's class to Smith's class, and Smith asked her about why she got moved over in that class, and she gave her a basic indication of why. So for her to just say, never heard anything, don't know anything, no see, no hear, no nothing, honestly, it's hard to believe. And so during the late 90s, early 2000s, that would be Principal Bill Highland. He claims he can't remember anything. You remember Barack Obama when they would wake him up and they'd say, well, do you know anything about the IRS scandal? He said, only what I read in the newspaper, right? Hillary Clinton, do you know anything about Benghazi? No, I just heard it when you heard it, right? Honestly, people, when are we just going to say people are lying, right? Just lying, right? They lie. They think, oh, the girls are lying. Come on, let's start with adults are lying. So that's one. You have Whitaker. He's absent off the school campus on suspension and with pay. And then we heard maybe there was another person. Maybe they were just notified that they're in trouble, right? Because they didn't do a mandated reporting. They didn't report properly. So now yesterday, we started hearing that the varsity basketball coach was terminated. He was fired. And he can do that because he's not a certified teacher. He's not a classified employee. So a lot of times people that have talent are hired to coach, but they don't work. They're not employed. They're hired to do a task, kind of like a contractor coming in. So they're at-will employees in that sense, and you can let them go. So they called him in and let him go. It wasn't a surprise to me. I've never met the gentleman, and I haven't watched a Yuba City High School game since 1967. That's a long time, right? I played in one and against them. But I've never been back to watch one of their games, and I don't know the gentleman that was their coach. But I've heard a lot about him. You think, oh, how did you hear? Because I've talked to people who made complaints to the athletic director and to the principal about his abusive behavior. And you might think, abusive behavior towards whom? I don't know whether you've ever played sports. Some coaches are amazing. I've had some so-so coaches. I've had some amazing coaches. I've never had any coaches that used foul language and screamed and went nuts, right? Now, you see some of that on television sometime, right? The coaches, now, maybe it's a different generation now, right, of coaches. But when I coached soccer for the recreational league here, they would throw a coach out of the soccer area if he was abusive towards his players, like screaming at them and stuff, little kids. And so I have heard about the basketball coach of Yuba City High, and I've heard from other professionals that coached over there or teachers, and I've heard a number of reports of his being abusive towards his players. And so they called him in and fired him. I don't know why, but I think that's a great thing. Now, years ago, a friend of mine who I went to high school with used to coach at Faith Christian School, and he used to get all out of line and cuss and drop the F-bomb and stuff. And even Faith Christian, a supposed Christian school, would not deal with him until all kinds of pressure and people left the school over it, right? It's amazing why do adults in authority, why don't they take care of business? Why don't cops who have a gun, who have handcuffs, who have shotguns and automatic weapons and bulletproof vests, right, and helmets and all kinds of gear, hide behind the car until they ate all the tacos and blew all the ammunition off and got all exhausted, then they go in and pick up all the people? Why do they do that? Why don't people just do their job? It's just amazing to me. So we have this situation where all of a sudden you'd like to be a fly on the wall, as they say, and just wonder why now? Why are they like making a decision to eliminate the varsity basketball coach now? Maybe people are finally going back into the annals of complaints and reading all the complaints and then deciding, hey, maybe we should have dealt with this once upon a time, and they just, in other words, there's a tipping point, right? And it finally goes over the top. Now, I'm going to tell you another situation that is just symptomatic of a system where people are making $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 a year, maybe over $200,000 a year, all the way up to the top, all the way down to the beginning teacher that maybe the rookie teacher, first year out of their CBEST test, they get $45,000 a year plus benefits and all that kind of stuff. But all the way up, you get people, and they're going to get paid for the rest of their life. They teach for 20 or 30 years, and then as long as they live, another 20 or 30 years after school, they just keep getting paid. Pretty good job, right? And they get paid in the summertime when they don't teach, right? It's pretty good gig. Clean work, no layoffs, right? So here's another situation. I want you to just think of this. This is a complaint to the top people at Yuba City High and to the athletic director. And this is a situation that happened at over at River Valley. There was a basketball game, right? Let me just tell you the story. I won't read it all to you. But a basketball game between Yuba City High and the River Valley Falcons, the Honkers versus the Falcons. The females were playing, the high school girls were playing, and the game was hotly contested, right? It's like the big rivalry between Yuba City and River Valley. It was like the old days way back when Yuba City and Marysville were the same size schools, and it was the big, what they called the big little games, packed gyms, people all fired up, all juiced up. And so here we have a gym all hot and bothered, and we have the ladies playing a game. So the story is, beginning of the second set, a mob of 20-plus River Valley football players and a large contingent of students were all getting loud and stirred up. And the group kind of began to spill out of the bleachers because, you know, the basketball court goes right up to the bleachers, but volleyball is smaller courts. So people were moving off the bleachers and kind of spilling out onto the floor and moving out towards court. And things were getting out of hand, and there were a lot of personal insults, and people were using foul language at a high school game. Now, I find that fascinating. Like, why? Why did they allow that to go on? Foul language. Why don't you just remove people? They remove people that get all out hot and bothered at the Oakland A's in some games like that. So the description, the things get worse and worse and worse. And at that time, there was an administrator of the school named Tom Russer, and he happened to be present and watching the whole thing. And the behavior continued, and the refs, or the umpires, whatever you want to call them, refs, they started warning people. And after there was a second warning, the administrator, Russer, went over to the mob of people and asked them to be quieter or something like that. You know, addressed them. Then he went back, took a spot. The screaming and inappropriate language continued. This happened in September of 2016. And hissing noise, mocking, you know, basketball, football, whatever. You know, people, they try to harass to get people to make a mistake, right? Whether you're shooting a free throw, kicking a point after, whatever in football. Stuff happens, right? But there's a limit where you you go over and it gets rude and harassing. So the refs gave another warning to the crowd, and at this time, one of the coaches from River Valley came across the gym and headed over to the group, and it looked like he was going to try to quiet them. And at that time, the administrator, Russer, called over to him, yelled over to him, saying, "Hey, I got this." But it was so loud he couldn't hear him. But he kept yelling at him. And Russer kept saying, "Hey, leave it to me. It's in my charge," right? But Russer didn't go over to take care of it. And it just got worse. The very next play, the ball, you know how the ball gets loose in basketball or volleyball, and it rolled over into this group of male football players. And so instead of just kicking the ball back as a courtesy, keep the game going, they weren't helpful. So the Yuba City High player had to run over, female, bend over to pick it up. They surrounded her, and they began to intimate like they were having sex with her and mocked her and pretending to slap her on the bottom. And other people were hooting and making fun of that and just thought it was just the neatest thing to congratulate them for like a simulated rape. I want you to think about that, and just I want you to think if that's the best we can pull off. And, you know, my friend Rick Teagarden, who was superintendent of schools at Yuba City or Yuba County Office of Education, used to say, what we're really doing in school is we're molding new citizens to take over our country. we're molding citizens. It's a lot more than just teaching them arithmetic, reading, etc., etc. We're teaching people how to think, how to behave. We're teaching people character qualities. I want you to think of what the state of our public schools, when kids are dropping the F-bomb, a lot more, you know, they're basically illiterate except for the F-bomb and all kinds of filthy language. And then they're doing simulated sex acts and being disrespectful towards females. That was going on in September of 2016 with the principal. I don't know whether the principal, I assume the principal of Yuba City High was not in the room, but the principal of River Valley was there, Tom Russer. And people were laughing over in the River Valley side, all at the expense of a young teenage girl. Now, I don't know whether I have a daughter. I don't know whether you have a daughter, but they're sensitive. They're, as a young age, they're shy. They're sensitive. They could be bullied. And so right in front of everybody, the whole gym, one girl gets caught in a precarious situation where she's surrounded by a bunch of nutso athletes from River Valley. Russer was described as standing and laughing along with everybody else for a while. Eventually, Russer was pressured, I think, into going over and exiting the mob out of the gym. When the athletic director from Yuba City High was contacted, he described it as it was way beyond his priorities. I think what he meant to say, beyond his scope of responsibility. But athletic directors ain't what they used to be in terms of communication. So what he said was priorities. I think if he had it to do over again, he would say this is way beyond my scope of responsibility or my clout, or as Obama would say, above my pay grade. In other words, the principal of the high school needs to kick some rear here, right? The principal of Yuba City needs to go over and kick the principal of RV's butt. Have you heard anything about this going on? No, you haven't. You know, here's what's happening is situation after situation. When you keep complaining about a situation in your community or your neighborhood, you call the police, you call the city council. You know how many calls it took and complaints it took over my friend Kumar Kairam, or Kairam Kumar? How many times that we had to complain about prohibiting him from selling a beer, a single beer, when there's no law in the city? There's no ordinance against that. One administrator just came up with something stupid. Time after time after time, people after people after people, argument after argument, phone call after phone call, nothing done. This is no surprise. Complaint after complaint after complaint. How many do you make before you just take your kid out of school, or you just say, screw it, I'm just going to, if I stick my head up, I'm going to get it chopped off, because nobody does jack. Just like in Florida, the guys waited till the guy ran out of water, ammunition, and tacos before they go in to arrest him. We'll be right back, and we got 1 hour left. You're listening to Live with Lou. This is Lou Benninger and KNYC, The Patriot, and we are going to talk for about an hour, and then we have a sports talk group coming on. Let's see. I was thinking about something that I forgot to say, but it'll have to come back to me because my mind is like a colander, and it just stuff falls out the bottom and then comes back through the top. So I wanted to mention one more thing about that event at River Valley High School in 2016, where there was a volleyball game. I played a lot of games in my life. Organized athletics in high school. I played 4 years, and where there were 2 referees, not 3 like there are in basketball and the NBA, but there were 2. I have been in some crowded, packed gymnasiums where things got pretty loud, but never crass, sexual, or foul language at a high school game. I just never. It wasn't permitted. It wasn't okay, and I have never seen a referee have to stop and go over and deal with anybody in the crowd. I just have never. I've never seen that. It's unbelievable. I played hundreds and hundreds of games myself, and I've watched a few, but mainly just participated. And I would have seen it if it happened, because everybody, the refs and everybody, they're out on the court. You're playing a game. You're stopping. You're shooting foul shots. You're dealing with stuff. I've seen fights on the court, but never in the stands. And so these 2 umpires for volleyball, things got so screwed up in this game that the umpire got down off his perch there watching the net. And he, even though the administrator of River Valley, Russer, was in the crowd and had already been notified and was watching this and laughing at it, the umpire got so disturbed by it, he went over to deal with it himself, and then Russer went over and finally moved the people out. Now, that's out of hand, people. When the umpire is not there to umpire the spectators, they're there to umpire and referee the game. And it's just a tragic situation. And it's just a spirit of, there's a number of things going on here. One, as I began talking earlier today, is the teachers' unions. The teachers' union overall umbrella of control over the school system, where you know that it's going to be very, very difficult to eliminate anybody that's behaving weirdly or teaching poorly. And so people just give up and they become passive. They become ambivalent, lethargic, and they just give up because they don't feel like they have any power, even though they're supposed to. Teachers, principals, vice principals, deans, nurses are supposed to be overseeing and managing this school, as well as the resource officer, who is typically a law enforcement individual. The unions are organized for the unions. They have nothing to do with students. The only thing the students are good for is a meal ticket for teachers. That's it. Recently, the American Federations of Teachers attacked President Trump's health plan, talking about that the GOP rewards the rich and rips off the rest of us. This is Randy Weingarten. Now, you would think that Randy was suffering as a lowly paid teacher. And you see these people make these accusations and charges, and then if you don't really check into them, you think, oh, well, that's a legitimate thing. You know, maybe Trump is ripping off everybody. Randy Weingarten, he's the president, or she is the president of the American Federation of Teachers, made $472,197 last year. $472,197 for you and all of us. That's just a little under $500,000. But Weingarten is not the only highly paid union leader. The executive director of the National Education Association, John Stocks, made $355,721 last year. And NEA, National Education Association President Lily Eskelsen Garcia, made $317,826. Now, all these people probably started out in the teaching industry. So they have a lot at stake and want to keep this whole union thing nice and strong. California Teachers Association President Eric Hines made a big stink about corporate executives making too much money, although he didn't bring up the fact that he makes $317,000. California Teaching Association Executive Director Joe Nunez compensation is $460,000. Associate Executive Director, another one, Emma Lahaney, she makes $480,000. Deputy, you know, there's all these different terms, associate, deputy, executive. Karen Kine, Kyhn, makes $427,000. It's kind of sad to have to mention this, but New York City's United Federation of Teachers boss, Michael McGrew, I don't know where he fell off the truck. He obviously missed the big ticket. He only makes $288,000. And that's New York. Well, the teachers union is scared to death because there's a case going before the Supreme Court that may give public employees the option in 22 different states of paying dues. The unions hold teachers and other employees hostage by forcing them to pay dues in order to get employed. Did you know that? People, in fact, some of my friends felt if they didn't join the union, the teachers union in California, they would never get a job because they'd be blackballed. So I'm just wanting to give you a flavor of how difficult it is and why we ended up in this predicament on the high school, college, and elementary school campuses. It's because of unions. It's influenced the whole thing. You wonder if since you're a parent, you're just, as a parent on these campuses, they say, oh, we really want parental involvement. It's a lie. You're a necessary evil. You just feed the kids at home. If the school system will get more organized, they would really like to feed kids Monday morning, noon, and night. And then you just sleep them overnight at your place and then send them back in the next day. And the kids are just simply a meal ticket. You're just a pain in the rear, basically. And so when you complain, your complaints haven't been heard. They just simply say, you know, I've actually been, I've listened to administrators say these things, that they know more about how to take care of your kid than you do. And so when you think, well, why didn't these complaints go anywhere? It's because there's a spirit of arrogance and elitism amongst administrators. And they just think you're just whining, complaining, the kid's whining, complaining, and they're not wanting to go up against their comrades, the teachers. They're not wanting to go up against them. They're not wanting to file a complaint because it's going to be a big old problem. It's like when Officer Paletta with the Yuba City Police Department, when he took the complaint from Alyssa Bailey and her mom, Crystal, he just thought, well, let me check with my superior officer first, my supervisor, to make sure we're going to actually take a complaint against a supervisor of the county of Sutter, Jim Whitaker. And then when he finally was told, well, we have to take it, then he came back. Instead of doing a full report and investigation, he did what they called just a field information report, which isn't even a public document. It's just an information item. In other words, he wasn't serious about investigating this against a supervisor for the county of Sutter. And basically it just got buried. So for the last 3 years, the Baileys have been trying to get due process, and no one really has been wanting to help them. You wonder, how come, so then once somebody that supports Jim Whitaker said, they're just after money. After 3 years of nobody wanting to pay any attention, now they're just after money. They were just after money, you'd think they'd have filed immediately. Well, maybe the school district has a conscience. I don't know. Maybe they don't. But maybe they do, because maybe they're going to address people that should be mandated reporters. Maybe they're going to address situation with somebody like a citizen who ends up with the school, a student's file. How does a resident who has nothing to do with the school system, isn't on the school board, her husband doesn't work for the school district, ends up with personal information about a student and then stands up at a school board meeting and tells everybody all about it? Nobody's going to do anything about that, I suppose. And nobody's going to do anything about other teachers that should have reported complaints about physical education teacher Jim Whitaker, or maybe other teachers, like the varsity basketball coach Mamo Rafiq. Nobody did anything about that. They're not going to do anything about that. But we just heard, as I mentioned earlier, that the district let him go late this week. But we don't know any details about that. Isn't it interesting with government? That government is supposed to serve us. We pay for the government. We pay for the schools. They're not selling anything over there. They take our tax dollars to pay all those salaries. 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100,000, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150. Unions, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. And yet when anything happens, we can't know a thing about it. It's confidential. Oh, well, it's confidential. It's confidential this. It's confidential that. Well, we can't talk about it. We can't give the name of the teacher. Well, we can't tell you what happened. It's a personnel matter. You're too stupid to figure it out. You're too stupid. You're not trustworthy to know this. But then a citizen can get private information out of a student's file and stand up and speak right at the school board meeting with over 100 people there. Nothing happens to her. Isn't that amazing? This is what happens when you have full-blown union control over everything. That's what happens. So, I mentioned earlier about all the areas when we get serious about wanting to protect ourselves. Like when I fly on airplanes, there are sky marshals on airplanes protecting us. People packing weapons, right? You can go anywhere that we want to protect things in the United States. We put armed guards involved in that. We don't have any problem with sorting that out. Every politician of any significance has armed guards. One of the guys who used to be Yuba City police officer rides around with Jerry Brown, governor, protecting him. That's his full-time job. We don't have any problem with that. Dianne Feinstein, all these anti-gun advocates, they're all packing guns. But our most precious possessions, our children, we get all confused and we don't want to put armed guards. I get a kick out of it. It used to be you could walk on any campus. There were no fencing. except fencing to keep the balls from rolling out in the street, right, on the playgrounds. But you can just walk onto a campus and go in you could walk into any room you wanted. Then they paid all this money. I'll just speak about Marysville Unified. All this money to fence. But you know something? You can walk through any of those fences because there's openings in the fences that are not locked. You would think if you were going to fence something, like when I went and visited Folsom Prison, they had fences, but they were closed. And you had to ask permission to go in. And because I was with a parole agent, they granted us permission. Not me. I was just along for the ride. And then we had to get permission to actually get outside the fence. Now, do you think that we would protect kids better if we had fences that you could not get in unless you were asked for permission and were granted permission by an official of the school, like a guard with a gun? Just like if you go on, when I go out to Beale Air Force Base, you've been out to Beale recently? Well, you got to go through a gate, a guard gate, and those people got rifles right there and guns. And they do not, they ask you who you are, and they want to see your identification and what business you got on the base. And if you don't belong out there, then you better have somebody's name that's authorizing you to come through that gate. That would be right here at Beale Air Force Base. And if I go into the courthouse, so I go into the courthouse quite a bit. And when I go to the courthouse to see the sheriff, I got to go through security. In fact, that's elite security over there, Monty Hecker's group. They stop me, and I got to empty my pockets, and I got to go through a metal detector, and they wand me to make sure that I'm proper to go on in. Now, you'd think if you really wanted to protect our kids, you would stop anybody at a gate that wants to get on the campus, then get on into the office to get permission to do whatever, to meet a teacher, to go pick up your kid for a dentist appointment or whatever, right? But they don't do that. So why not? Why don't they do that? I think it has something to do with the teachers union. And with liberals in this country, the teachers union are liberal. Not all of them that pay dues to it are liberal. It's a deal to take it's about control. It's to take your guns away. It would be very simple to protect every campus in the United States of America. Nobody is going on any military bases and killing people. The Fort Hood disaster where the Muslim psychiatrist killed everybody, that was an inside job. He had permission. He worked there. But you're not seeing any people going on military bases and shooting the place up because they check you out at the guard place. It's very simple. Why do you think it's so complicated? Why? It's just like, it's like I said before, your toilet's overflowing. And instead of dealing with that, you go out and paint the trim on the house. That's what this whole thing's about. Instead of dealing with making the campuses secure, we go off on a whole nother topic. Why should people own guns? It has nothing to do with each other. As the guy said earlier on the internet thing I read earlier, the NRA has killed no one. And they don't take your tax dollars. But we won't focus on other people that kill a lot of people, like Planned Parenthood and other abortion clinics. You see, there's a lack of sense. It's called nonsense, no sense, that's involved in this whole mess. All right, let's see, where are we headed? Oh, I want to talk about, I had a gal, I want to tell you about two articles I wrote. They're in the Territorial Dispatch right now, territorialdispatch.biz. I had a lady, I've always, I worked at the Church of Glad Tidings. I've worked in business. I've run businesses before. I always get a kick out of when you have an unhappy customer that they don't have the guts to wait to talk to the boss. They just cuss out the secretary, right? Cuss out and F-bomb the secretary. So a gal called the Territorial Dispatch this week because she read my article, Black History in Africa. And I don't think she knows how to read. But anyway, she may be a friend of Jim Whitaker. She's out there in his district. The reason we know is we turned her into the police. And she called first she called the territorial dispatch and cussed out the person answering the phone with the F-bombs and all that, right? Angry about this article. Go ahead and read it, Black History in Africa, see if you don't agree with it. And if you don't agree with it, that's fine as well. But I have never called up a place and cussed them out in my life. I've been unhappy with services that were rendered to me before, and people didn't pay me for what I did for them, but I have never cussed them out in my life. This woman repeatedly cussed people out over there. And so I thought, Billy Sunday, who was an evangelist, he used to be a baseball player, professional baseball player, and then he got converted and became an evangelist. And he used to say, make them sad or make them glad, one way or the other. What you don't want to do is leave people in the middle. So anyway, this woman was sad, and she threw a fit and barfed all over. And I thought, you know something? So I thought maybe you should go read that item. This is Black History Month, and I made a point on why there is no White History Month, but we have to have a Black History Month. So we're going to be right back, and I'm going to tell you about another article. I'm going to talk about sales taxes when I come back. All right. So if you're used to going into a restaurant and paying maybe $14, $15 for a meal, your favorite meal, and you haven't been in there for a while, and you got busy, and it's been a couple months, but you go back in, and the place is remodeled, and they have more employees, and you think, oh, this is awesome, man. The services, you got more people working, and it's nice. You added a bunch of square footage. It's like you put up a bunch of new screens for sports. It's just like cool. Think, man, nice. And then they got the menu, and you went to look for your favorite item, and it was $28. You think, whoa, how come the change in prices? Like the price went way up. And they said, well, we remodeled, and we had, we're hiring more employees. We're paying them better now, and we're this and we're that. And they say, well, I don't want to pay, this is too expensive. And they say, well, you have to pay that, and you have to eat here, right? It's mandated that you eat at Red Robin or Chili's or Applebee's or whatever. And you don't have a choice. You got to eat here, and we doubled the price. That's what government's doing. Right now in Yuba County, and it may be in your county. Oh, by the way, I looked at the temperature. The temperature is 35 degrees. And the temperature, I'm sorry, the temperature is 49 degrees. Because I was checking out Hagerman. I think maybe we could move to Hagerman, and we could broadcast from out there where we already got a contingency listening. We can just broadcast from there, right? Where the prices are cheaper. And I thought maybe the temperature would be the same, but it's a little cooler. It's 35 degrees in Hagerman. So we have to sacrifice 14 degrees. It's 49 here. So we'll have to think about it. Maybe we can move the whole operation because we don't have any heat here, and it's raining next week. So next week we got a water. So anyway, I was looking at this sales tax situation. So government just keeps raising the price, and instead of these services improving, they just raise the price on what we were getting, or we don't get as much anymore. Like down in Broward County, Florida, they don't even get protect and serve anymore. They say, hey, we're going to wait. We're going to starve them out. We're going to starve them out, and we're going to wait till they run out of ammunition, and then we'll pick up the pieces and haul the person to the sheriff's department. That's an easier way to do it, and we don't want to risk anybody's life. So in 2014, the City of Marysville, after they made bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, and they indebted the city on a bunch of property that they shouldn't even have bought, and it's been sitting vacant for 10 years or more. They indebted the city now up to $17 million for 5 acres of property, and then they blamed it on police and fire. And they did a campaign. It's illegal for the city politicians to use your money and my money in the city of Marysville to advertise against us to convince us to tax ourselves. It's illegal. But so what they did is they went out and got a businessman named David Lanza to fund the tax initiative because they're going to give him benefits later. So they really, ethically, they violated the law, but they didn't get arrested for it because they're the government. And so they hoodwinked everybody to enough people to vote for it. They did the election 2 times in about a year and a half. The first time they lost by 75 votes. The second time they won by 209 votes, and they increased the sales tax 1%. So when you buy something that's taxable in the city of Marysville, or if you buy a car anywhere in the world, if you're a citizen of Marysville or 95901, you're going to get charged an extra percent or 8.5%. Not just for a year, for 10 years. Some people will be spending over $1,000 extra per year for sales tax. Think about it. If you're spending just $500 extra for that 1%, that's $5,000 that you're contributing to the city of Marysville. Why? Because they mismanaged the tax funds. When the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association keeps track of all the jurisdictions in the state that are putting tax measures like sales tax measures, local sales tax measures on the ballot. And there'll be all kinds of them. There might be 50, 60 different cities and counties and agencies that have tax measures on the ballot. And so in 2016, the city council promised that even though the money coming in wasn't restricted by law to spend on police and fire, they said that's what we need. We're not going to be able to provide you police and fire services unless you give us an extra 1% sales tax. Right after they got the money, they started getting the cash flow about a year ago. They raised wages on other employees other than police and fire. And recently, Marty Brown, who is the new county administrator, or the new city administrator, she mentioned on being interviewed by John Black on another local station that some of that money may be able to benefit the parks. And I thought, oh, that'd be nice to have better parks. But that's not what the tax dollars were sold to us that they were going to do. They were going to use it on. It was police and fire, not parks and recreation. So as the city council changes and as the city administrator changes, it's just another stream of funds, just more and more money that government gets to spend or misspend. And promise you one thing, you know, that's in the car business. I worked in the car business for a few years. And it's illegal to bait and switch. What that means is if you advertise a car on the radio or on television or in the newspaper, and then a person comes looking for that car to buy that car better exist, or you better have sold that car, or that's called bait and switch. In other words, you say, this car right here, we're going to sell it to you for $2,000 under what its value is. It's going to be a really great deal, but you get there and it's never there. It's always gone. That's being deceptive, and the fair practices, business practice, prohibits that as false advertising. And that's what government does. They lie, and that first of all, they create the problem by misspending. In my home, and in your home, if you create debt, in other words, you can't living according to your means is bringing in cash and spending that cash to take care of your needs. That's living according to your means. When you go out and borrow money because you're not willing to wait to earn that cash, and you borrow money because you're presuming in the future that you're going to earn that money back, then you're always behind the 8 ball, as they say. You're always paying interest because you weren't patient enough to wait till you gained the money to buy it with cash. In my household, because my parents went through the Depression, they were so nervous about borrowing money. They always dealt with, they didn't buy anything unless they had the money in their hand. Very simple. No, but what the government does is they make promises, because a lot of these people can't manage their own personal finances, but they end up in government running our money, and then they borrow money, thinking, "Oh well, we'll have that money. Some other money's going to come in over there," and they raise the wages and they expand the government with employees that we can't afford to pay. We literally promise people, "I'm going to pay you," but we do not have the income to pay them. So then they borrow to do that, and they borrow from this fund and they put it over here. Then they say, well, utilities are too high. So then they want to put up solar, and we borrow money to put up solar, and it's going to take 20 years to get that money back. And you just keep borrowing and moving money around until someday there's no money to move around. It's called a Ponzi scheme. Look it up in Wikipedia. Wiki could do it, but I'm going to tell you to do it. Charles Ponzi, Ponzi. He went to prison for it. It's the same thing that Social Security is doing right now. There's no Social Security fund. They use all that money for other things. Your money does not go into a Social Security fund. I watched a congressman who was a very famous congressman around this area years ago named Vic Fazio. Vic Fazio, it was the first time I sat and watched a politician just straight up clearly lie to senior citizens. I was in my probably 25, 28, something like that. I sat in a meeting of about 30, 40 people to listen to this guy, and he just lied, as they say, through his teeth and said, "Oh, yeah, we have all that money. All your money's sitting right there in a trust fund." I thought, you liar. Just a liar. Democrat congressman. And so these people borrow, and then they go out and say, "It's your fault. You didn't give us enough tax money to pay for all these things that we wanted. I didn't want them. I didn't ask for that. I didn't ask for you to add on a bunch of welfare workers and a bunch of code enforcement workers and a bunch of clerical workers and planners and all these people. I didn't ask for that." So all of a sudden they run out of money. They make promises. Politicians, city councilmen, and supervisors say, "Yeah, we're willing to raise those wages." They tell the union that. And then when it comes around for them to get elected, they say, "Hey, you remember the last time you wanted support? I got you. I had you, and I gave you those wages and benefits increases. And so now I'd appreciate your support." So the union then announces, "I'm supporting Mr. Fletcher or Mr. Vasquez or Mr. So-and-so," right? And so around and around it goes. Where it stops, that would be the taxpayer, because then pretty soon Mr. Vasquez retires and Mr. Fletcher moves on, and what's left is these high pensions, high health costs, and high wages that the taxpayer cannot spend. So what what Marysville did, I just told you, but what Yuba County did is when they were making a lot of money during the house building, the subdivision building years of the early 2000s, they started like spreading that money around like manure on a clover field. And instead of setting the money aside, and when they were right in the middle of making $2, $3, $4, $5, $6 million a year from the federal deportation beds at Yuba County Jail, they started taking that money from the sheriff's department and use it for other projects. And now the party's over because they've expanded beyond what they can fund, and now they want a 1% tax. And they went out, even though they're not supposed to use our money, tax money, to work against taxpayers to raise taxes. You get that? They're not supposed to use our tax funds to go out and campaign against us to raise taxes. What they did is they took $30,000 of our tax money and they paid it to a survey company out of Sacramento to survey 556 voters to see what they felt about raising taxes. Now, to me, that's illegal. They think, well, you never convict us in court, just like Whitaker's attorney. To me, whether we could convict them in court it's unethical to take our tax dollars to go out and survey taxpayers about whether they want to raise taxes on themselves. What that's like is somebody else couldn't give you a broken nose, so you hit yourself in your own nose to break your own nose, right? So we figured out, Wikiman and I, we worked and worked and worked. We tried to do it like Common Core, but then we had to go back to old math last week, and we came up that it was about that survey company, it cost them $50 or $60 per phone call or on the internet to ask folks a few questions. I thought, man, I ask questions all the time. Nobody pays me that. So Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, the people that brought you Proposition 13 that saves, that Prop 13 since 1978, I think it started, has saved me nearly $100,000 of taxes. Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association said local governments also frequently hire expensive consultants like the ones that Yuba County just did at taxpayers' expense to tell them the best way to pass a sales tax. That's what Yuba County Supervisor just did. And when they say, we're there to serve you, to help you, that is BS. I can't say that on the radio. The big coon gets mad at me. These consultants, it says, sometimes advise local officials not to publicize the sales tax election to the entire community, but to target only their supporters. So anyway, what happens is these people are going to, they use these campaigns of it's only a few cents a day. It's only a few dollars a month. The fact is, it sounds kind of trivial, but the fact is, many people are going to pay over $1,000 in addition a year. If they raise tax, save 1% on a $40,000 car, that is, you can buy a $40,000 car and not even be new, brand new. So you're out extra $400. Now, if you're in the city of Marysville and they add 1% on top of the 1%, we're almost at 10% on anything we buy that's taxable, sales taxable. Gasoline, any hard goods, clothing, toilet paper, just hard stuff, not food, unless it's prepared food. But if it's like grocery food, no. But you could see how you could get over $1,000 a year easy, and if it's in Marysville, that means you got 2% now on top of what the state wants. So if it's a $20,000 car, that's $400 a year. That's $400 for that one item. If it's a $40,000 car, that's $800 extra that you got to give the government for 10 years if you bought a car a year. Say if you had a man, a husband, wife, and a couple of kids that are going to be driving, you're buying a car every once in a while, right? And then if you buy stuff to remodel your house, buy a new stove, buy a refrigerator, buy big items, right? Not just a $5 item, but $500 item, $2,000 item, right? Sales taxes are known as regressive taxes. Regressive. What that means is that they punish people, and they punish the poor the worst. A rich person like Warren Buffett, who's worth billions of dollars, percent of sales taxes doesn't even catch his attention. But if you're a poor person, say you make less than $50,000 a year, to pay an extra $400 of tax on a vehicle, or $200 of tax, or pay more gasoline, we're paying more tax on gasoline, state tax, federal tax, and now county local tax, and city local tax. That's hard. It says poor people need to have transportation. And the things that they have to have, right? Supplies, not food, but all the other supplies that go into your house. Cleaning supplies, right? Clothes, things like that. Those are all taxable. And it's a regressive tax. Now here's the budgetary shell game. A sales tax measure is put on the ballot to fund a politically popular purpose, like emergency services. Right? That's popular. People like, hey, we got to have fire. We need police. And so they pitch it like, hey, this is what's really costing us all the money. No, that's not really what's costing us all the money. When supervisors are paying themselves $80,000 a year, and sometimes the people that are on a board like that can't even run their own business. You look at their own lives, they're not prosperous. They're not bringing that much to the table anyway. You pay them $80,000 a year. Well, that's sinking the county as well. Paying people, we got the head of Health and Human Services making over $220,000. Why? Just to hand out welfare money? To oversee a health department and hand out condoms? They don't even straighten out your health. They don't even do smoking cessation classes anymore. Why do we need that? Why don't we hire a person for half that? And they say, oh, well, we can't find anybody. Oh, I think I could find some employees that work for $120,000 at Health and Human Services. Wikiman said he'll do that job. Remember that guy, that Middle Eastern dude said, if somebody don't want to be president, he'll try it. He'll try it. I'll try it. It's like, oh, why pay him $220,000? So it says they pitch it that it will fund a politically popular purpose, and if the tax passes, it will enable local government to free up money from the general fund that can be spent on other pet projects. So unless it's a sales tax measure that passes by 2/3, like 66.66666, where then it's mandated that every nickel that comes in from that sales tax has to go to the Yuba County Sheriff's Department. Unless it's written like that, then it passes with just 50% of the population plus one, and they can use it. They could buy jelly beans with it. They don't have to use it. Just like Marty Brown said, I think we'll use some of that money for parks. Well, that's her right to do that because she's the county administrator and there's no restrictions on that money. And that's what we said about it when we didn't want to pass it, those that opposed it. So she has every right to say, I think we'll buy pink banners for the city with that money, saying, come to Marysville. We're all about pink over here. They can spend it on anything they want. They could paint all the city streets blue with that money. It's a budgetary shell game. You know the shell game where you don't know under which shell the little bean is? That's what it is. So they just keep moving money. Are we already out of time? Just like the whole day just passing before me. Well, I'm going to land the plane here. We're coming back next week. No, yeah, we are. We're coming back next week. I may have to do a pre-record. I got to do a tip training next week. So anyway, we got these guys waiting in the wings here, and they're all fired up about sports, and they got a good show for you. So hang with us, and be kind to people out there this week because every once in a while you'll run into an angel and not even know it.